Alright guys, I have a super fun competitive deck for you here. It's fairly budget, it's about 70 bucks for the whole deck. You can throw in some other tech cards at your expense like hand traps, but what I have here is what I think the essentials. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off here. Triple Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This dude is a beast. 3500 is basically the biggest attack you're going to see on any monster in this metagame, and his effect is super good for wiping boards and doing damage. So if his effect goes off and your opponent doesn't have anything to stop it, then you're in a good position to either OTK or just win the game at that point. Next, I have 3 copies of True King Agnimazud, however you say that. So this guy is really great, because not only is he a fire monster, which works really well with the deck, because his effect is that you can destroy monsters in your hand or field in order to special summon him, which combos with your Fire Kings and your baby Soros. But also, he works really well with the Fire Kings, because if you destroy 2 fire monsters, you have a non-targeting banish effect. So that can get around a lot of cards that can't be targeted. So he's really good for playmaking, he's really good for the OTKs, he's really good at getting rid of problematic monsters. Next we have 3 copies of Fire King High Garunix. Now this guy is great, because you destroy him, there's plenty of ways to search him out too. You can special summon him, you can destroy him in your hand, and he basically wipes the board, and if your opponent kills him again with another card effect, then he just comes right back. So if they can't destroy him by battle, they're going to have a really hard time dealing with this guy, because he keeps coming back and he keeps wiping the board. Now you have to be careful that you don't wipe your own board when using this guy, but with more experience, you'll know when to use this guy, and you can even set up chains where you destroy 2 of him in the same turn. So the first comes back from your graveyard, wipes the board, and then the second one comes back, destroying the first one, and then the effect triggers again all over next turn. So you basically have like an unstoppable board wipe every turn, and then you can just go face for 2700. So really good, in my opinion. And next, of course, it's Dinos, so we're going to be playing triple Soul-Eating Oviraptor. This dude is the playmaker, basically. He searches out any dinosaur in your deck. He has a second effect, which you don't use as often, but can still come in handy every now and then. You definitely want to see him in your opening hand, and if not, you definitely want to search him out with a baby Soros or a fossil dig. So definitely always want this guy in your opening hand. Next we have 3 copies of Barong. Now this guy is really good, because this deck is all about searching. This deck is all about +1s and consistency, and this dude is great, because you can destroy him to activate your effects, like True King Enigmuzad and Fire King Island, and he destroys in your graveyard. You get the effect from the card that destroyed it, and then you get his effect in your graveyard to search out any Fire King card from your deck. So it can be the field spell, it can be Garunix, it can be any Fire King card. So he's really good for plussing, he's really good, he's a 4-star, so he's good for the level 4 Xyz, so he's really good. He's a really good combo extender, I think. Really good at making sure you have the advantage in terms of hand size. Next, 1 Miscellaneous Soros. I wish I could run more of this guy, but he's at 1. So when you have Ultimate Conductor on the field, you want to have this guy in your hand, because you can discard him, and any effect that would target, or basically all of your dinosaur monsters are unaffected by your opponent's card effects for the rest of the turn. So when you have this guy in your hand, you can pitch him, play your Ultimate Conductor, and then they can't do anything to stop him. Like, their board is gone, and they're taking tons of damage. So he's really good. If you can get him in your hand, or actually, if you have him in your hand, you can pitch him to the graveyard first, and if you have another dinosaur in your graveyard, you can summon out the Ultimate Conductor, and then he'll still be unaffected, even though you pitched him first. So that's still really good. One Tyranno Infinity. This this guy's kind of a meme card, but at the same time he's not, because he's a level 4 dinosaur, which is really good for your dinosaur Xyz monsters. And depending on how many you have removed from play from your evolution pills and your Ultimate Conductor effect, usually when I play this guy, he's at about 400 or 4K. So a normal summonable 4K monster. That's really good for the OTKs. Next, 3 Baby Sarosaurus. This guy is dope, alright? There's so many ways in this deck to destroy him, and he's really good at searching out your Oviraptor if you don't have one in your opening hand. He can search it out and then use Oviraptor's effect to add something else to your hand. And while he's in your graveyard, of course, he's fodder for your Ultimate Conductor and your Ultimate Evolution Pill. So this is an insanely good card. If you open with a Fire King Island and a Baby Sarosaurus, then you're basically set. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright, next for just some one-ofs, running Dogoron, the Mad Flame Kaiju. You know, he's a kaiju, so he can out more difficult monsters to kill, but the main draw of this card is that he's a dinosaur, so you can actually search him out with your Soul-Eating Oviraptor. So if you absolutely need a kaiju, you can search him and have him whenever you really need him. So that's why he's good. And I don't side him, because more often than not, flipping this, you can special summon to your opponent's side of the field and then use Ultimate Conductor to flip him face down, because he has 3K attack, which can be kind of hard. But most of the time, if you're trying to out a really annoying monster on your opponent's board, you play this guy, and then he's pretty easy to kill with Ultimate Conductor. So it's not bad. And then the last monster is Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. So this deck has a really bad problem with back row. And with Sacred Phoenix, it's a little bit easier to get rid of it all, but his effect is that he doesn't come back until your standby phase. Garunic's effect activates every standby phase, so he comes back every standby phase. But Sacred Phoenix only comes back on your standby phase. So if you destroy him on your turn, you're going to have to wait until your next turn for his effect to actually go off. And if you don't do anything in that time that you're waiting for him to come back, then you're in a really bad spot. So he's kind of situational, but he's still really good for the deck, I think. Alright, for the spells. We're running no traps in this deck, so we have only spells left. 3 Fossil Dig. It searches out any of your key dinosaur playmakers, basically. It searches your Baby Sarosaurus, your Oviraptors. If you don't open up with one of those in your hand, hopefully you'll open up with a Fossil Dig and then just search it out. So that card's really good for the search. Alright, here we go. Fire King Island. Your budget version of Dragonic Diagram. Except you're actually running Fire Kings, so its effects are really good. So with this card, you want to destroy your Baby Sarosaurus in your hand, and then search a Fire King from your deck to your hand. So it's insane amounts of searches with this deck, mainly due to this card. So you can search out, you can also special summon Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. You can also special summon High King Garunix. It's really good. And I wish I could say more about it, but I want to keep moving forward here. Since we're running 3 of those, we want to run 3 Terraformings as well, because you want to see this card as quick as possible. You can search Fire King Island with Barong, but that's a bit slower and it takes another turn. And you want to go, with this deck, you want to go as fast as possible before your opponent can really build up any kind of resistance to your boards. So we're running 3 Fire King Islands and 3 Terraformings. Next, 3 Double Evolution Pill. So this card is great. If you don't have a Ultimate Conductor in your hand, you can just bring out this, you can play this card and then bring one out from your deck. Because a lot of the Fire Kings, or all of the Fire Kings, aren't dinosaurs, right? So it's really easy to have another card that's not a dinosaur to trigger this effect. It's just a really solid card. And in this deck, I'm not running Overtext Quatless, but if you want to, you can. In my experience, I don't think I really need it. I have enough ways in this deck that I can find my Ultimate Conductors without really needing Double Evolution Pill to bring it out. So this is a really good card. You can play Overtext Quatless if you want to, but for this purpose and for the sake of budget, I'm not. Next is Onslaught of the Fire Kings. This is a really good comeback card. If you're in a bad spot, you have no monsters on, or your opponent has monsters, you have none. You can bring out a Garunix, and then he'll just destroy himself, right? He'll destroy himself at the end of the turn, and then he'll come back during the next standby phase, and then wipe your opponent's board. And then, so they have nothing, and now you have a 2700. So it's a really good comeback card. It's also really good when you're going second, because when your opponent plays a monster, this is a really good first card to bring out, because it sets up your plays for the rest of the game. So, 2 Onslaught of the Fire Kings. This card is also searchable with your Barong, so keep that in mind for some plays you might want to make. Last, we have 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Pot of Desires, and 1 Cosmic Cyclone. Now, Cosmic Cyclone's in here because this deck has issues with back row. And I have considered running, Royal Decree to negate trap effects, but I don't have that card yet, so I haven't been able to really test it. But Cosmic Cyclone's good for getting rid of the pesky cards that you can't really deal with your monsters. Monster Reborn is, I don't even need to explain Monster Reborn. It's an insanely good card. And when you have a deck like this where you're popping so many monsters and putting so many monsters in the graveyard, this is basically a 4th Soul Eating Oviraptor if you want to think about it. He can also... So Ultimate Conductor has his summoning condition is that it must first be special summoned from your hand, right? So you can't, if he's in the graveyard without you summoning him the first way, then you can't Monster Reborn him. But if you summon him the way that his card text wants you to summon him, then you can Monster Reborn him back. So keep that in mind, so you don't really get into any problems with the rules. Pot of Desires. This deck is all about consistency, and Pot of Desires really helps with that. However, you want to play this card as your last resort, okay? This deck does so much searching that if you play this guy too quick, you're going to probably banish the cards that you want to search first. So you're searching probably 2 or 3 times a turn. So you only want to play Pot of Desires when you have absolutely nothing, or else you're probably going to banish a lot of your good search targets and then ruin all of your plays, basically. So this is your last resort when you have nothing else. And that's really the only time you want to play it. Now for the extra deck. The extra deck is really bare bones. This is these are the 4 essential cards I think you need for your extra deck. And if you have a bigger budget or if you have a bigger collection, then you can add more. But first, you just want Evil Sword Dolka. This guy is great because he can negate 2 monster effects per turn. It's not a once per turn. And he requires 2 level 4 dinosaur monsters. 2300's pretty good stat line for level 4. And he can negate, like I said, 2 monster effects per turn. Monster effects are probably the most common nowadays. So you're also running an Alagia. So depending on your matchup, if you're facing off a deck against a deck with a ton of monster effects, you definitely want this guy. But if you're playing a deck that you think more spells would be, your opponent would be playing more spells, then you want to play this guy. But it's kind of hard to know in the moment. So I think these two, it just comes down to experience, and it just comes down to matchup experience as well. So both of these are really good cards. I don't think you can go wrong with playing either of them, but definitely try and figure out which one would be the best in any situation. Next, I'm running one Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn. Now, I get a lot of laughs when I play this card, but here's the thing, right? You have Ultimate Conductor, and you have to summon him by banishing 2 dinosaur monsters in your graveyard. Well, what if you only have 1 or 0? You can go into Minerva with your Barongs or your Oviraptors, and then use its effect to hopefully pitch some other dinosaurs into the graveyard, and then you have enough to summon Ultimate Conductor. And it has happened to me a few times, actually, where I've only had 1 dinosaur, and Minerva pitched another one to the graveyard, and then I could summon Ultimate Conductor and go. So it's a really funny tech card, but I think it works really well, and I think you really do need it in this deck. And then last we have Underclock Taker. It's a very easy effect monster to very easy link monster to summon. You can Ultimate Conductor has 3,500 attack, which is of course higher than anything you're going to see in the meta these days. So with Underclock Taker, you can basically reduce any monster to 0, and then run over it with Ultimate Conductor for 3,500. So it's a lot of damage. This thing is really good for getting rid of some of the higher attack point monsters you might come across, which aren't common, but there are some monsters every now and then that'll have insane amounts of attack, like maybe Utopia, the Lightning. I think that's how that works. I wish I had that card, but I'm not sure. So anyway, that's it. And if you want, there's a few side deck cards you can play. Let me go talk about these real quick. Circle of the Fire Kings, High King, Avatar Arvada, and Lost World. Lost World is a card that I had in my main deck for a while, but I found that it really wasn't useful, and a lot of the times it just bricked in my hand. So if you're running it in your side deck, then it's really good in certain matchups where they want to target monsters, and this helps a lot with that. So side this whenever you need to. Arvada is good every now and then. He's a good card by himself, but rarely does his effect ever actually do anything useful, and Circle of the Fire Kings is basically the same way. They basically destroy themselves and then summon out another Fire King monster. So this card helps with OTKs, this card helps with OTKs, and but it's very rare that they ever actually come in handy, so I say you side deck them, just in case you need to. And Arvada is another Fire King monster that you can search with your Barong. So if you run out of cards to search, then Barong's effect won't trigger at all. And that does happen a lot, considering how much you search with this deck. So just keep that in mind if you want to play some Arvadas or Lost World, more field spells. So that's about it for this deck profile. It's really fun, it's really consistent, and it's not a totally meta deck, but anything with dinosaurs has a pretty good chance of making it in the competitive scene. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll probably get back to you. And bye.